Volunteer with Rogers TV in Ottawa. Today, we're going to be speaking with another volunteer with Rogers here in Ottawa, and her name's Anne. Anne's been volunteering since about 1997. We're going to find out what she's been up to since COVID hit. Anne, how are you doing today? It's nice to see you.
Hi, Glenna. Very nice to see you too. I'm doing
Thank
very
you.
well. How about you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. Thanks for asking. I think we're two of the lucky ones, actually. And that kind of leads into my first question, in that COVID has been hard for some people. They've had a harder time adjusting. They've had to face some new challenges in their lives. How's it been for you? Have you found this to be a difficult time, or are you just kind of riding with it?
Actually, for me, it hasn't been all that difficult at all. I'm keeping myself busy. As you mentioned, I do volunteer at Rogers. I'm responsible and I'm a producer for the Slovak Spectrum program. And I've been the producer for the last 20 years. And because of this COVID, yes, we've had some challenges in terms of how to record, but there was a steep learning curve, and I had to pick up the ball, and I had to start doing my ENGs. I had to do everything. So that's keeping me really busy.
I know that a lot of the shows aren't currently in production. So Slovak Spectrum, you've managed to keep that ball rolling.
Yes, we've been producing a monthly program since COVID. So for over a year, we have enough material. I had to get creative, and sometimes being creative means that I'm the camera person and I'm also the person that is on the other end of the lens because I can't have anybody else. So I've done some cooking shows where I recorded myself making some dishes, and then that was part of the show for that month.
Well, it's kind of funny because I was going to ask you if you've tackled any new projects during COVID, expecting, the usual making sourdough bread. I personally put in a backsplash in my kitchen, but it sounds like your project and the things that you've, occupied your time with have really centered around Slovak Spectrum and your volunteer work.
Well, actually, Slovak Spectrum is just one of my great hobbies that I kind of work on that's occupying my time. I'm also a beekeeper. So I've been keeping bees, and that is also an activity you do by yourself with maybe 2-3 million bees, but no people. So that again hasn't really changed since COVID because I've been just doing it as I've been doing it before that. I'm also a gardener, and I have a large backyard, and I garden by myself again. So so between those three activities, I've been busy.
Well, now I have like 2 million questions to ask you about the beekeeping, and obviously the gardening and the beekeeping go nicely hand in hand. I mean, the bees obviously appreciate the garden that you have there for them. How long have you been keeping bees?
I retired 7 years ago, so I've been keeping bees for 7 years.
Okay. And what made you decide to try that as a hobby?
It's actually just kind of happened by happenstance. I love gardening, and I love flowers, and I have big flower gardens around my house. And a friend of mine uh, dropped by that I haven't seen in 20 years and brought me a jar of honey. And I asked him, I said, "Where did you get the honey?" And he said, "Oh, my bees made it." And so I said, "Really? Can I see your bees?" And after I went to see his beard, I was hooked.
Wow. How many queens do you have?
15.
Okay. I was hoping you'd actually be able to answer that question. It's not that I know much about beekeeping, but I've read a few fictional books, so and I've seen some things on TV and some videos. So obviously, I think most people know the queens are necessary, but I wasn't sure you'd be able to tell me exactly how many you have. That's amazing. Okay, off
Yeah,
air, I have
15.
other questions.
I have 15 queens exactly. And the reason why I know I have 15 queens is because I have 15 hives, and you can only have one queen per hive. So it's like one queen per household.
Okay. And is she easily identifiable? Like you can keep an eye on her, make sure she's doing okay?
Well, she is now because I've marked her. I put a white dot on her head.
Okay. Okay, one more question. Do you name them at all? I'm just curious about what beekeepers do with their bees.
Okay, so each hive has 80,000 bees. So it would be really hard to name the bees.
Oh, I just meant the
And
15 queens. I didn't mean all the bees. I just meant the 15 queens.
no, they don't have a name, but they have an address. So, for example, one of my hives is A hive, and then there is a B hive, and then there's a C hive, and then there's a D hive. So she's an A queen and a B queen and a C queen.
Okay. All right. That's great. Easy to identify and easy to remember and easy to make sure they stay in their own hives too. I think that's very,
Right.
very fascinating. Okay, so back to Rogers a little bit. I know that you've worked on Slovak Spectrum for so long. Have you worked on any other shows at Rogers, or has it always been that one?
It has always been that one.
Okay, and
it's
if you have,
it's part of the cultural show.
okay, with so many years of experience and wearing so many hats for the show, do you have any particular memories, something funny that happened, something wonderful that happened on or related to the show that you'd want to share?
Well, I think one of the rewards of doing a Slovak Spectrum show, which is a community programming, it allows you to have access to certain people that you wouldn't normally, as an average individual, have. For example, in hockey, you have some famous Slovak hockey players, and if you call them up and you say, "I have a Slovak TV show and we would love to interview you," then chances are that they'll say yes. If you were just an average individual and you would call up the hockey player and say, "Can you talk to me?" they probably say no. Also, when there's some dignitaries from Slovakia that come, for example, we had the treasurer, we had the finance minister from Slovakia that came for a visit. I was able to call them up and I would say, we have a monthly television program. I would love it if you would just say a few words to our viewers. We'd love to have an interview with you. Chances are that they're going to say, "Of course, I'm available," and they make themselves available. So having being a volunteer on Rogers and being able to produce a community program has some of the privileges. If we get actors or just really anybody of Slovak origin that comes to Ottawa, as an average individual, you wouldn't have access to them. But because I'm a producer of the Slovak Spectrum, then chances are that, I'm able to be in contact with them, interview them, have a chat with them. And we've had some wonderful artists, some singers, we had dance groups, we had dignitaries. I mean, it's just, the list goes on, to the point where some of them became my personal friends, and we still keep in touch. So it's really nice.
And to the point that you've been doing it for this long, so obviously you enjoy doing it too. How did you first start volunteering at Rogers and for that show?
Well, it basically started, someone else was a producer, and they were looking for people to help out with the program. And so they asked whether I would be willing to help out. So initially I was the host of the show. That was before teleprompters, that was before anything. So it was interesting because the producer would send me the script in English at 5 o'clock. We were taping at 5:30, and I was supposed to read it in Slovak. So as I was reading it in English, I was saying it in Slovak, and that was our program. But things have changed now, and things are so much easier with teleprompters, and it's just wonderful that the access we have to some of these programs and that allow us to make a quality show.
Okay. Well, and I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your stories with us, both about your time at Rogers, your time with your bees. It sounds like Rogers is a big part of your life, and I think you're a big part of Rogers' life too. We're lucky to have you as a volunteer. So thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. It was pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's watching. If you would like to volunteer or be a part of this volunteer project, either being interviewed or interviewing someone else, please email Arthur, and he'll be happy to help you out. For now, this is Glenna signing off, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in TV Land.